Hey friends, just two quick notes before we start the show. One, this was recorded on an open mic in Saratoga Resort, so it does have a little bit of background noise in it, but the content of the episode is absolutely incredible. I'm so excited for you to listen to it. Second, we are talking about hiking, especially in an area where it is quite wild and bear activity is quite frequent in many of these places. So please, if you choose to do any of these hikes, especially on your own, consider your safety and do what is safe and right for you. One great tip that our guests gave is some of the tourist centers, especially Ketchikan, offer the ability to borrow safety equipment, including bear spray, and some also have spot satellite messengers, which allow you to request emergency crews if you need them. Please do your research and consider your safety before doing any of these hikes.
Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am flying solo, but this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. It probably sounds a little bit different from my usual studio setup. That is because I am actually sitting in a room in Saratoga, and I'm pretty excited because this is the first time that I've gotten to do a live recording sitting with my guests. So that does make this episode a little bit special, but also we are discussing a topic that I have been asked about numerous times because it was something I wanted to do on my Alaska sailing that I did not get the opportunity to do. But these two have done this numerous times. So what I'm talking about is hiking through Alaska at various Alaska ports that you will stop at. And they've actually done it on Disney sailings as well, which makes this even better. I do have the pleasure of welcoming two good friends to the show. If you are fans of Mouse Gen, they are very familiar faces. I would like to welcome Ken and Sarah to the show. Ken and Sarah, how are you today?
Great, thanks. How are you, Lake?
Doing pretty good.
Good. Excited to have you on, as I already mentioned. Why don't you go ahead and start by giving us your Disney and cruising background?
So I had the opportunity to go on the Disney Fantasy years ago with my family. And then in 2022, Ken had never been on a cruise before. So we did the Disney Wish in December as a maritime cruise. And Ken enjoyed it so much that we decided to start doing more cruises. So we've been fortunate enough to be on the Dream, the Wonder twice, and then also the Magic. So we've had a great time just exploring the ports and exploring everything that the Disney Cruise Line has to offer.
So I have traveled quite a bit, but I had never been on a cruise before, and I wasn't sure how that was going to be. And Sarah had talked me into going on the Wish. And I did have such a great time that we wanted to do more, and the Alaska cruise seemed very exciting because we could incorporate hiking, which we do a lot of, with the cruise.
Yeah, and I think when we vacation, we are big into doing adventures on vacations. We aren't really sit on the beach kind of people, so we were looking for a cruise that had a variety of fun activities to do as well as relaxation.
Yeah, so we don't have one, but actually two cruises to discuss. These are both 7-night Alaska sailings that you sailed on. And as you alluded to, kind of the big topic of discussion here is actually the ports and what you've done in the ports. I get asked all the time about hiking in Alaska, and you guys really are like the go-to experts on that, I would say, at least within my sphere of influence here. So I am excited to discuss what you did. First, why don't you just give us like a brief overview of your thoughts on sailing the Wonder to Alaska? You have done it twice, and you are currently booked for a third time on this sailing.
Yes, the most beautiful, picturesque cruise going up the coast through British Columbia and Alaska. We've had the pleasure of having amazing weather, days in the 80s. I think we've seen rain once between the two cruises, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
And the Wonder is just such a gorgeous ship to sail on. We love everything about it. We love how small it is and intimate it is, and we've gotten to know some of the crew on board and had the opportunity to connect with them both years, which is really nice.
Well, why don't we go ahead before we get into the ports here and discuss Vancouver a little bit, because you have spent a little bit of time in that Vancouver and around that area doing some activities. So why don't you first discuss kind of what your usual game plan is when you're planning on doing a stay in Vancouver and some of the activities that you've done around Vancouver.
So we absolutely love Vancouver and find there's a lot to do and see when we're there. One thing we like to do is we do the Grouse grind hike, which is about 15 minutes out of town. We usually take an Uber to get to the trailhead of the hike, and then we have taken public transportation back. The hike is about a 2 kilometer straight up grind. It's a hard hike. It really takes your breath away, but it is beautiful. A lot of fun to do. It's very busy though. It's a huge tourist attraction. So lots of people. You can also take the tram up the mountain if you aren't choosing to hike. When you get to the top of the mountain, there are bears that are neat to watch. There's also bird show. So there's things to do at the top. So we hiked up, and then when we got to the top, we did a little bit of sightseeing up there. And then we also hiked down. You can't hike down the same trail as you hike up. You have to take a different trail back down. So the trail down is called the BCMs, and they will not allow you to hike down the Grouse grind. So you've got to kind of find the side trail and hike down it. So that's always a lot of fun. It always gets your heart pumping, I guess. But we've always enjoyed that. When we're also in Vancouver, we like to rent bikes, and we've ridden bikes all around Vancouver, just through, I forget what the company was called.
Just like a local bike will run.
So we rented bikes and we've ridden all around, had lunch at Grenville Island, and just spent time exploring that way. Vancouver is a very bikeable city, so it was easy to do.
Yeah, Stanley Park's beautiful to ride around. Such a nice bike ride. Another hike that we do enjoy doing in that area when we come into Vancouver. You do need a car to get up there. It's in Squamish. It's about an hour north of the city. The Big Chief, it's about a 4-hour hike to do all 3 peaks, but the most breathtaking view from the top.
And Squamish is a great place to visit if you have time when you're in the Vancouver area. It's a smaller town than Vancouver. Lots of great restaurants. It's also where Virgin River is filmed. So if you're interested in that show, you can go and have lunch at Jack's Bar. So we enjoy our time in Squamish. So we always...
And before we get further into this, where do you guys go to find these hikes?
Generally, we use Google to find most. They're on all trails, and just reading people's reviews, seeing the difficulty.
My cousin lived in Squamish for a while, and I've done some trail races out there. So I have been out there, and we got the name of that hike, the Big Chief, from her.
And did you find that was the same resources you used once we get into the Alaska ports as well?
We found finding information on hiking in Alaska a little bit tricky. We were actually at a trail race out in Seattle 2 years ago, right before we went our first trip to Alaska. And I met a group of people that lived in Alaska, and they gave us the name of many of the hikes that we've done out there. So that was really helpful just to get the firsthand information from them, what they did.
And turning it to all trails real quick, because I think most of the hikes you did are probably on there, but as us know, but for those that don't always use all trails, it can sometimes be kind of hit or miss on the information. Great app to follow along as long as it's marked correctly, but you can get a lot of old information on there, old reviews, and sometimes things might be labeled as an easy to moderate hike and you find that it's the opposite.
Yes, we definitely had that issue when we were researching the Laughton hike in Skagway. We could not find consistent information on it. And based on the train ride we wanted to do, for the timing, we needed accurate information because we were on a time crunch of how hard and how far the hike is.
And you're right, All Trails has all kinds of information. So it ranged from some people saying it was an easy 2-hour hike to other people saying it was an 8-hour hike. We had a hard time figuring out how long that would take. So it does take it's taken us some research to try to figure out kind of really more information about the hikes, especially in Alaska.
Well, why don't we go ahead and turn towards these ports then? We've got double stops essentially in all of these to discuss here. We should have Juneau, Skagway, and Ketchikan, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Perfect. And your first of those should be Skagway.
So Skagway is our favorite port to stop in. There seems to always be lots of things to choose from to do. We've done 2 really amazing hikes in Skagway. Our first hike was Lower Dewey Lake. It was about half a mile uphill. When you reached the top of the hill, there was a lake, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Then from there, you could hike around the lake. So it was about a 3-mile hike around the lake, and then you could hike back down. But what made that hike really special was at the top, when you reached the lake, they had canoes and kayaks and life jackets that were all there that had been brought up by the town. and they were there for free to use for free. So we had a chance to do some canoeing on the lake up there, which was absolutely beautiful. We really, really enjoyed that. There were also a lot of people swimming. It was a hot day. I think it was about 80 degrees. A lot of people swimming in the lake, a lot of families up there. So it is a steep uphill, and it would be kind of intimidating, I think, for some people, but it's only half a mile. So once you reach the plateau, you're good to go around the lake, and it's beautiful. You can also reach the parking lot the trailhead, just from walking from the cruise ship. So it's an easy hike to get to, and it's free. So that was really nice. The hike can be extended to Upper Dewey Lake, which we have not done before just because of timing. It is something I'd like to do one day. I think it's about an extra 6 miles added on to that, but apparently the views are amazing up there as well. So that was our first hike in Skagway.
I hope you guys share the photos, but you have some stunning photos from this hike. About how far from the cruise port was the trailhead?
It was near where you buy the train tickets, maybe 10 minutes from the boat.
Yeah, about a 10-minute walk from the boat, just right through town. So easy to get to. And the trailhead was easy to find.
Yes, it was very easy. It was labeled just off the main strip.
Well, you said that was Lower Dewey Lake?
That's Lower Dewey Lake.
That is Lower.
And what was the other one you did your next time?
So the next time we were in Skagway, this took a lot of research, but it was one of the best excursions we've ever done. Absolutely fabulous. We did a train ride through the White Pass Railroad, and the train ride was about 14 miles. So we boarded the train in town, took the train up. The train ride was gorgeous. Took us 14 miles, and then it stopped and let us off. So we detrained, and then you begin a hike. The hike is between 5 to 8 miles, and it's a self-guided hike, and it's through like really beautiful forests, and then beside a tumbling river. And then you walk up to the Laughton Glacier, and the Laughton Glacier is absolutely stunning. Yeah, we loved it. We spent time on the glacier just exploring some of the ice caves and some of the streams that were coming in or off the glacier. And then once we finished, we had some snacks, and then we hiked back down, and the train picks you back up where it dropped you off and takes you back into town. So it was a really good combination of getting a chance to experience the train, which is a popular thing to do in Skagway, but also getting outside and exploring on foot. So getting in that hike, which was amazing. My niece did it with us, and she was 6 when she was with us. So she was able to do the hike. It wasn't a very difficult hike.
We opted for the shorter of the train/hike, and it's about a 4-hour trip. So that was when we were trying to calculate how far the glacier was and how much hiking was going to happen. Would we be able to make it there on the 4-hour trip? A lot of people opt for the 8-hour, where you get on the train in the morning, and then you would get on the train with the afternoon people to go home. Essentially, we were on what we were told was the last train of the day that stops there to take you back. So you do need to be back and get the train. Otherwise, you are staying outside for the night.
You said this was self-guided, so they basically just like dropped you off? Like there was no one there with you?
No, they just dropped you off at the side of the track. So they said, anyone hiking the Laughton Glacier, this is your stop. So we just got off the train in the middle of nowhere, and then the train went away, and we just started hiking. My family did it with us. My parents and my younger nieces, they didn't make it to the glacier, but they did a nice hike. If they had more time, they could have made it, but they just kind of hiked until it was half the time was up, and then they turned around and walked back. I don't know if it was that it made us nervous, but it was, you did have to make sure you kept an eye on time so you didn't miss the train. If you had more time and could take the whole day, I would maybe recommend doing the 8-hour trip, just because it gives you more time to explore the beauty of the glacier. So you aren't rushed up there. Like you could pack a nice lunch and have a lunch up there and then hike back. Because we could have used more time.
Definitely could have used more time. I think there was an additional hike at the T as well that went straight and followed the river, where we turned right and we went up to the glacier.
Yeah,
so there's definitely some more hiking in the area.
There was other places to explore that we didn't get a chance, but just an outstanding tour. And I think it cost about $100. And we booked it right through the White Pass Railway site.
Gotcha. Okay, so you basically booked the train ticket, and they told you when to get off and be back at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had gone in and asked, is there any other way we could extend the trip and make it a longer hike, but not have to go not go the full 8 hours? But they said no. That was the only trains that stop there are the trains that are meant to pick up the hike.
It sounds like basically you get 2 trains, an AM and a PM train, and you guys got dropped off on the PM and picked up on the PM, whereas the other option is you take the AM and get picked up on the PM.
Correct,
yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, what a great way to start this off with two amazing sounding hikes. One that's, you can get off the ship pretty much and start. And then again, one that incorporates the train in Skagway, I think is what I'd be very interested in. That just sounds like an amazing day. I mean, both sound amazing. Again, I've seen pictures from the first hike and that lake is stunning.
And like I said, it was absolutely like jaw-dropping how beautiful it was up in the glacier. And it wasn't a busy hike. There wasn't many people that chose to do that hike. So you felt it was very peaceful.
Yes, definitely very peaceful. Probably only about 15, maybe 20 people got off at that point. And I think we were the only ones that actually went up to the glacier.
Yeah,
I think everyone else stayed around the area.
Did you have cell service in that area?
I think I did. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we did because I think we were in contact with my family to let them know where we were because we had my younger niece with us. So I think we were in contact with them.
I believe so.
The other thing, though, that did happen that is, I think, important to point out, when we went back, so the train was supposed to pick us up, I think, around 4 o'clock at the platform where it dropped us off, and it wasn't there at 4 o'clock. So we were a little nervous. Did we miss it? But the train was running a little bit late. So it came about 20 minutes later than we thought it was going to, but it still came. I think it's just based on how their trains are running that day.
Okay. Anything else on Skagway before we move on?
Well, in Skagway on our first trip, we had done that lower Dewey hike in the late morning, early afternoon. And then we went back to the cruise ship, got lunch, and then we headed back out, and Sarah had surprised me with a helicopter dog sledding trip up to the Denver Glacier. And I had never been on a helicopter before. So I got to experience that, and it was breathtaking. The views from up there, flying up onto the glacier. I love dogs, so it was so nice. There's about 200 dogs up there, and we got to meet a bunch and then go dog sledding around on top of the glacier. Such a beautiful day. It was in the 80s, sunny, not a cloud in the sky. It was very memorable.
So for two people that probably on the show sound like they are unafraid of anything, you are afraid of heights.
Yes, I am.
After the fact, how did you feel about that experience?
Yeah, first getting on, I was definitely very nervous. And I was hoping to get sat, to be honest, I was hoping to get sat in the back between people so I wasn't...
Feeling like you're hanging out a helicopter?
Exactly, yes. It happened that I was actually the person that was hanging out of the helicopter, and I was put on a side in the front where it's essentially the whole side is just glass. I survived. I made it up. And I did. I loved it.
I think you got distracted by the views, too.
I did. It was quite a climb up to the top of that mountain. I think we flew up about 5,000 or 6,000 feet. And he took it easy on us. He didn't fly around and do crazy stuff. It was a nice, calm flight up. And then it made the flight down so much easier after just getting the first one out of the way.
What another amazing tour to add on to what's already a beautiful hike. I actually forgot that you guys had also done that in tandem. Well, let's go ahead and move into Juneau, the port where you can pretty much do a little bit of anything. It is the capital of Alaska. Lots of great options there. There are actually quite a few DCL bookable tours that have hikes as well, and a lot of tours that you can do, hikes included there, especially around the Mendenhall area. What did you get up to in Juneau?
So we decided, after looking through all of the excursions available in Juneau, because like you said, there were a lot of different options that we could do. We decided to try the Juneau Mendenhall Glacier guided hike. We decided to do it guided just because we were unfamiliar with the area and unfamiliar with how the hike would go. We also wanted to make sure we saw the Mendenhall Glacier that day, so we thought this hike would give us a chance to experience the glacier, but also a chance to get in a nice hike. So we booked the tour. We booked it through Alaska Shore Tours, not through DCL. It was about 11.5 kilometer out and back hike, and it took you right up to the glacier. You were not allowed to go on the glacier, but we touched the glacier, which was really amazing. It was a great hike. They picked us up in town and then drove us out to their base, which was about a 15-minute drive through Juneau. And when we got to the base, we were given the option of having gear put on. So rain boots, rain jacket, backpack. But because we were blessed with perfect weather, it was about 80 degrees that day and sun. So we didn't need any of the equipment that they had offered to provide us with. You had to bring a backpack with you. So we did the hike. I think there was about 8 of us in the group that were hiking, and everybody in our group was an experienced hiker. So we had a guide, and he took us along the glacier. And it was really interesting, the hike, because they had signs posted of where the glacier had been certain years. And then you could see just how much the glaciers receded in the past 100 years. So every time we'd pass a sign, he'd stop and give some information just on what the area looked like back then and how it had changed. So we really got an appreciation for how much the glacier has receded.
Yes, he was very knowledgeable. He had a lot of history and detail of the area, and it was an informative hike. We got a lot of hiking done that day. Like Sarah said, the group was experienced, so we got to go a bit farther and just experience more of it.
And again, we got to go right up to the glacier and touch it. So that was really amazing to get to do that. It was, I think I'd rate it as kind of a average hike. It wasn't too difficult. Everyone in our group was an adult, but I think like a teenager would have no problem doing it. Oh, we did stop for a snack. So they did provide us with a light lunch. So we stopped along the way and the tour guide carried the snacks for us. So we had a snack pack and just sat and enjoyed the views of the glacier.
Awesome. And what did you do your next time in Juneau?
So the next time we went back to Juneau, we weren't sure what to do. We had really enjoyed the Mendenhall hike, looked for other hikes in the area, and we were just very undecided. We ended up going back on a helicopter, actually, and we did helicopter and hiking on the Mendenhall Glacier. So similar idea, we were picked up in town, we were brought to their base camp, which was at the airport. And from there, we had to put on gear, the helmet Sarah spoke about, winter jacket, winter pants, boots with crampons,
An ice pick.
Full gear was all included. We left right from the airport. On the helicopter, same thing. They took us the long way there, so we got to see amazing views of all the mountains and glaciers in the area. He was also pretty educated and had been doing it a while, so he could explain the different spots we were going to. Brought us in. We landed on the glacier with the helicopter and then went for a 2-hour hike, I believe it was, along the glacier.
Which was absolutely incredible. Getting a chance to walk on it and just seeing all of the different ways the glacier is shaped. We saw a lot of waterfalls on the glacier, which were beautiful. We had to cross some of the Glacier River with our special boots on. But yeah, it was gorgeous.
It was a beautiful day up there. Unfortunately, that creates a high melting day. But then in turn, the glacier rivers are really flowing. There's a lot of water.
Yes, and there were some very deep crevasses, so we had to be really careful when we were walking where we were going. So it was very nice to have the guide to kind of show us the way. Yeah, we really, really enjoyed the excursion. I think it's been nice to do a mixture of guided and self-guided things in Alaska, just because we've gained so much information about the area through having guides with us. But then it's also nice to do things on our own as well.
Awesome. And what is up next for you on your next sailing, did you?
So we're still looking into it. Christy actually just booked the cruise for us last week, but I think that we may try and do the Mendenhall Glacier hike again, but this time we would do it on our own. So we would take probably public transport to the hiking trailhead and then do the hike, just the two of us. That's what we're looking at. We've also heard that you can hike up the tram. We may look into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the hike up the tram is going to quite tease your appetite like maybe the Mendenhall Trail will.
So we might stick with the Mendenhall Trail.
The Mendenhall hike is just so beautiful because you have the Glacier Lake there and you can see Nugget Falls. It's just really picturesque in that area.
And you get a wide variety of scenery. So you start by going through like lush forest, and then you end up hiking on rocks, and then you end up at the glacier.
Yeah, it hits like a point where it's very barren.
That's the one by the Mendenhall Glacier, like tourist site, right?
It kind of is. It's on the other side of the lake.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we have one more port stop to get into here and some interesting experiences to discuss here, but Ketchikan.
So Ketchikan, we have heard nothing but good things about the hike at Deer Mountain. So we thought we'd give it a try. You can hike from the cruise port to Deer Mountain Trailhead, but it is uphill the whole way. And it's about 1.2 miles probably to get there. So we decided instead of hiking up there, we would take just a taxi from the cruise port. So we took a taxi from the cruise port. It was about a $15 taxi ride, I think, to get there, and really easy to grab a taxi right there and and get up to the trailhead. It is about a 10K round trip with the option to go further. So the first year we did it, we didn't go further. We did the 10K round trip. It is very steep and is very uphill. It is a lot of elevation gain, but it's not a difficult elevation gain because a lot of it is stairs that they've carved out into the side of the mountain. So it is a very doable hike for anybody to do. We hiked up. There is a halfway point where you can sit and look out so you can get a really good view of the cruise ship from up there. So for anyone looking for a shorter hike, that's something I'd recommend doing too, because it was a really, really nice hike. How far was that? Do you know?
I think it was a mile or a mile and a half to the lookout.
To the lookout? Yeah. And then we continued up, and as you go up, you gain so much elevation that you go above the tree line, which is really, really neat. As you continue to hike up, the trees get smaller and smaller, and the vegetation gets less and less. And then when you get to the top, you just have stunning views of the town and of all. Like, you can see the Disney Wonder looks amazing from up there. So we did that the 1 year, and then the next year we decided we liked it so much that we did it again. But we started our day a little bit earlier. We like to sleep in. So oftentimes our day doesn't start till lunchtime, but we decided to get out on the trails a little bit earlier that day so we could go further this year. So we did Deer Mountain again, did the same thing, took the taxi, started up the trail. This time when we got to the top of Deer Mountain, we decided to continue on to...
I think it's Blue Lake.
Blue Lake. So there are signs on the trails to point you in the direction for Blue Lake. We did not think we would make it all the way to Blue Lake because it is an extra...
I think it's 6 miles.
So we weren't sure if we would make it, but we started out on our way just to see how far we could go. And as we were hiking, Ken stopped to tie up his shoe. So I kept hiking, and all of a sudden I heard rustling in the woods beside me. And I thought, oh, is that Ken? So I turned around and there was no Ken. And then I kept hearing it. So I got a little nervous. And then all of a sudden I saw a black bear that took off. So that kind of ended the hike because I got nervous. So we watched the bear for a little bit and then decided we'd turn around and head back.
Yeah, we weren't prepared. We did not have spray or a bell. We do try and talk and make noises while we're hiking alone, especially somewhere that's not well used, like a quieter trail that a lot of people aren't on, so that we don't run into bears. So we weren't prepared that day. We decided it was a good idea to turn around.
I do know that you can get bear spray in the tourist information area in Ketchikan. So that's something that if we hike in Ketchikan this year, that we will make sure we do. Grab a can.
Is that right from the building that's right at the berths down there?
Yes. And they also recommend you letting them know that you're going hiking so that the township knows that you're out on the trail. And then after the hike both years, we did the greatest thing. We went to the Alaska Crepe Company, which Lake recommended to us, and it was absolutely delicious. So we got the Nutella and strawberry banana crepe and enjoyed that after 2 long hikes. One of the best things to do in Ketchikan.
Definitely a great way to end a hard hike.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I do enjoy the Alaska Crepe Company. And discussing getting to the trailhead, yes, if you are berthed downtown, you can walk to this trailhead. Like they said, it's about 1.25 miles or so uphill. Katie and I actually got up to that trailhead. We did not go into the woods and hike because at that point in our day, we were ready. I would say Ken and Sarah getting the taxi is kind of the way to do it because many ships, you're trying to maximize your time in that port and you don't always have a lot of it. So if you can save yourself that 20, 30 minutes to get up to the trailhead, then that is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any plans for your next time in Ketchikan?
Not yet. We haven't really looked into any other ideas yet. I think we will look into different hikes in that area. I think now that we've done this a couple of years, I think we feel a little bit more confident about leaving kind of the cruise ship area and traveling a little further out to hike. So we'll see what we can find.
Yeah, we'll look around and see if we can find something. We know if we can't, Deer Mountain is always a great option, and we could go back there, hike a little farther, be more prepared.
Yeah, I would definitely hike it again.
Well, that actually hits all the 3 ports that you have stopped in, but you do have one other special day in Alaska, and you guys have done so many different excursions, so many different hikes, and seen so many different glaciers. I'd kind of like to get your thoughts on Glacier Day aboard the Disney Wonder. Have you ever done any of the small boat excursions? And how do you feel like that day compares to like just doing your hikes and going and stumbling upon these glaciers?
We have never done the small boat excursion. It's usually sold out by the time we can get around to booking it. The first year we went on the ship, we said, we were just going to view the glacier from the Wonder just to see what it was like. The next year we decided it was just so beautiful, the sight from the ship, and the Wonder can get so close to it that we felt like we got a good viewing of the glacier from the boat, and we wanted to spend our money on a different excursion. So we decided just to view the glacier from the boat. I did have the most magical experience on Glacier Day. I left Ken and just went back to the room to grab something, and when I came out, Goofy was there, and Goofy grabbed my hand and walked me around the ship behind Paulo, and he just guided me around, and then his cast member friend took pictures of us, and they're such great pictures because it's just Goofy and I in the Alaskan wilderness. So, and he was in his outfit. So Glacier Day, we spend a lot of time trying to get pictures of the character.
Yeah, just time on the boat, having hot chocolate, meeting the characters, watching the glacier. Coming in off of the ocean and going up to the glacier, it's just so beautiful with the mountains. You're right in the middle of them. They seem so tall and you seem so small. And you don't know how this giant boat is fitting through there. But it's...
Yeah, and we spend most of the day outside. Whenever we cruise, we always just get an inside stateroom, so we didn't have a balcony. So we spent most of our time on the top deck or on deck 4, just outside looking at everything. And again, we've just been so lucky with the weather that both Glacier days, it was chilly, but I started the day in a t-shirt. We had excellent weather. Good days for being outside.
Awesome. Well, your next cruise to Alaska is coming up this summer, and you actually have two new port stops to you. You have Icy Strait as well as Sitka. Anything you're looking forward to getting up to there?
So in Sitka, we are looking at doing Bear Sanctuary and probably trying to find some hikes. In Icy Strait,
I think we looked into whale watching, something we've never done before. I know some of the trails in Icy Strait sometimes are closed due to bear activity, so I think we may plan on a hike and then just see how it is when we get there.
Yeah, that was where we had planned our hiking day, and sadly it was cut short because there were no trails open. We did do like the short trail in between the tram stops, but it does not quite fill the itch there. There is a lot of very accessible little trailheads in that area. You can also pay to take the tram up top, and there's some trails up there as well. I'm not sure if they were closed because we did not pay for that, but there's a lot of things you could definitely do on the fly in Icy Strait if you were not able to go on the regular trails.
Yeah, we need to do a bit more research on those two because they're 2 new stops for us that we haven't been to.
Yeah, Sitka's kind of a rare one for Disney because it may only stop there once or twice a year, but it does usually have a pretty good variety of things to do. All right, so we've discussed your ports. We've discussed a little bit about sailing on the Wonder here. A couple more questions for you, a lot of it kind of leading back to the hiking. First off, of all these amazing hikes you've done, do you have a favorite?
That is a really hard question, Mike. I do love the Deer Mountain hike because of the view at the top, but the Laughton Glacier was...
Yeah, I'm going with the Laughton
Glacier excursion was with the train ride and the hike. We walked right up to the glacier. We were on the glacier.
Yeah, I would say the Laughton Glacier was my favorite.
I agree with Sarah.
I really liked that it wasn't too challenging, so you weren't exhausted when you got to the glacier. The views were incredible. Even just like the river that's running off the glacier was breathtaking. And it was really a neat time to spend just exploring the area on the glacier. So seeing some of the ice caves, walking underneath them, just was beautiful.
You say the river was breathtaking. I remember when we were hiking on it, we ended up going up the glacier and we had crossed over the top of it, but we were on the far side of where the trail was, and we were a little worried about time, so we had to cross the Glacier River, and it was so cold.
It was freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did get very wet that day.
Yeah, we had to cross the river. We didn't have a choice. We didn't have time to go back.
What kind of shoes did you guys wear for most of these?
I always wear just my trail running shoes.
Yeah, the same with me. We both just have trail running shoes that we usually wear with good tread because there are slippery sections on a lot of these hikes. It is wet and there's a lot of exposed rock, moss, so it does get pretty. But trail running shoes have been okay for us. Hiking boots may be better for some people because they offer more ankle support, but no trail running. We also bring poles though, so we hike with poles sometimes, which helps with our footing.
Do you find that you use them pretty often on these hikes?
We use them in Deer Mountain.
Deer Mountain, we've used them.
We did not use them on the Glacier hike, but Deer Mountain we used them. We brought them on the Lower Dewey Lake hike as well as the Mendenhall hike, but I don't think we used them on the.
No, we didn't.
Awesome. Are there any of these hikes that you would particularly recommend, maybe for someone looking for a hike, but is looking for something to be more accessible, maybe a little more family friendly?
I would say the lower Dewey Lake. It is a bit steep at first, but you can get up there with a family, and it's a nice, easy hike around that beautiful lake. The canoeing, the kayaking after. It's close to town, too, so it's really accessible.
Yeah, and I think the option to swim when you're up there, like, it just gives you a variety of things to do. And if you get up there, if you do the 0.5 of a mile hike up, and your kids are too tired, you can sit at the beautiful lake and look at the lake. So you don't have to do the whole trip around. So if you have family with the different ages of kids or different ages of hiking ability, that hike may be good because you could go to the top, and some people could continue the hike and other people could just sit.
It is so close to town. I think that is a really good benefit. You can walk right from the ship. You don't need a taxi. You don't need any transportation.
The other hike, though, like the Laughton Glacier hike, was great for my family. So my family had my parents who are in their 70s, and then my brother and his family, and their kids are 7 and 9. And it was good for them because everyone could hike at their own speed and just go as far as they wanted and then turn around when they felt ready. And again, there wasn't a lot of elevation gain in that hike, so it was a pretty easy hike, but it was beautiful. My parents really enjoyed it, and my dad is not hiking.
We already alluded that you are booked on the 9-night Alaska this year, so a couple more days up there on the Wonder, getting to enjoy that. Is there anything else that you guys have in the plans?
Well, included in our Alaska cruise, we are going to fly into Calgary and then hike in Banff and Canmore and drive through Golden, BC, do some more hiking there, and then drive into Squamish. And we are going to stay overnight in Squamish for a couple nights and then go right to the port. So we'll be doing a lot of hiking this summer through Western Canada and then on the Alaska cruise.
Sounds like such an adventurous and an amazing trip you have coming up here. I can't wait to hear about what else you get up to on your undecided days and how all these amazing excursions went. Well, Sarah, Ken, thank you guys so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks so much for having us, Lake. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you for having us, Lake.
Yes, I have been trying to make this show happen for quite a while because, as I said before, people constantly ask me about hiking in Alaska, and you guys have really given quite a lot of amazing options you can tie to excursions, options that you can do on your own. So I really do appreciate you guys coming on and doing this show with us.
Thanks again for having us.
Yeah, and any questions any of your listeners have, you can feel free to send them our way.
Yep, you can send them to myself or email the podcast at info@DCL Podcast. I am in pretty daily contact with Ken and Sarah. They are two of my best friends, and we do all sorts of shenanigans and traveling around together and lots of running together for sure. But I think that is going to take us out. As always, you can follow Christy at Pack Your Pixie Dust and packyourpixiedust.com. You can follow myself at Instagram and YouTube at Mousechan, and you can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And you can always help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Well, that's going to wrap up the show. Once again, we want to thank Ken and Sarah for coming on and sharing their adventures through Alaska. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.